Welcome, everybody. I'm your host, Rex Sykes, on Create Your Best Life with Rex. And I'm thrilled to have you here today. I always appreciate when you join us live or in the replay. And whether you're watching live or in replay, go ahead and share the link. You can comment, you can ask questions, you can like, obviously, and you can share. And we're streaming to multiple platforms. And I just want you to know that because we're streaming to multiple platforms, we don't necessarily see all of the comments that are in the comment section. And that's unfortunate, but that's somehow the way StreamYard works. And we've been having a whole heck of a lot of trouble with Facebook, just so you know. So wherever you're watching, I appreciate you taking the time, the energy, and the effort to do so. And again, help share the show, because I can't do it all by myself, but you can help me, and I appreciate that. My guest today is a friend of mine, and he's a fascinating person with a whole lot of experience in some really important areas. And I'm going to tell you that Scott Jones began his career as an on-air personality and producer of television and radio shows, and he spent several years later as a social worker and grant writer running family self-sufficiency programs. And then he's the co-founder of the Addicted Communities Coalition, a national nonprofit company that operates the One Brother, One Sister program, and which is designed to help first responders with issues of addiction, trauma, and mental health. And in conjunction with these two entities, he started Sober Life Studios, developing and hosting several podcasts and other videos and production services. And on top of that, he's a fabulous artist. And so you must see some of his works. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring on Mr. Scott Jones. And again, I want to thank you for watching. And hi, Scott, how you doing?
Rex, I'm doing good. I got a little bit of a head cold, so I'm going to apologize to all the viewers first. I may cough a few times while we're talking, but it's just a head cold, and I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on, Rex. I appreciate it.
I'm thrilled to have you on. The audience may not realize that we've shared numerous shows together on another platform that you co-hosted with a good friend of ours, Lynn. But also you've been one of the things I was really proud of is that you came to one of the Los Angeles Tribune summits. I don't recall which one, but I thought that the segment that you did was really powerful. I was so pleased both before, but also during and after the show, having you on, because you know your business, you know your stuff, and you have no difficulty expressing it.
Yeah. When you base part of what you do for a living on your personal experiences and things that kind of led you to that point, it's really easy to work with passion and to work kind of, like I say, work out loud, let everybody know what you're doing. Because of my own past with addictions and alcoholism and issues within my family, I have no problem putting that in the forefront of my career. And I speak out loud, and I don't always have the most popular opinion, Rex. I don't always go with the flow with everyone else and how they think about things. I can only speak to what works for me. And one of the things I constantly tell people is we've been using the same formula to treat addiction and mental health for the last 40 to 50 years. And especially when we're talking about addictions and alcoholism, we're only having a 10% impact. So, which means out of every 100 people, only 10 of those 100 find their way to either treatment or some sort of remedy. And out of those 10, only one of them has a successful recovery. So in reality, when you're dealing with addictions and alcoholism, you're looking at 1 out of 100 people finding successful recovery. That's not success. That's not good. And we need to do something different. And that's part of why myself and my business partner, Karen Hurley, are doing what we do.
And I want to ask you more about that.
Yes.
Because, I mean, sadly, those statistics, for recovery, for a person who's going through a very difficult time, that's, abysmal.
Yeah.
To have 1 out of 100. But, Napoleon Hill has said only 2 out of 100 will ever change their life using his stuff. And his stuff has been around for nearly 100 years. And statistics kind of bear it out, that only 2 out of 100 people will take charge of their life and try to overcome whatever is holding them back and move forward in a positive way. And so that's why we're here, though. If even if it's just helping one person,
That's right.
that is better than nothing. But to your point,
Yes.
is this an American phenomenon? I mean, the problems that we have because of our legislation and our laws and the way that we view treatment. I mean, I understand that some other countries have some much greater success records than we do.
I think that there is a cultural issue with America. There are more successful programs in other countries, but it's not about the programming as much as it is about the mindset of other countries. We are Americanized. Every other country in the world has fentanyl in their countries, but nobody's dying at the rates that we are in the United States. Why? Because the United States, from the time you're born, you are groomed that if you have a headache, take a pill. If you can't sleep, take a pill. If you can't wake up, take a pill. If you need to calm down, you take a pill. If you need energy, take a pill. That's our society, instant gratification. So when a pill comes across, Americans are much more likely to pick that up and put it in their mouths. We also, so now you combine this cultural message of if you don't feel good, you have to fix it right away. We don't allow our bodies to heal anymore. Just think about it, Rex. When people catch a cold like I have, your nose starts running, and I don't want to be gross, but that's your body trying to push out the infection. And the first thing we do is reach for something to dry that up and keep it in us. When you think about it,
it suppresses the symptoms, but it doesn't deal with the cause, and so you still have the cold, but the symptoms seem to be relieved, and so you think somehow that I learned long ago, and I'd rather take a sauna or sweat it out or live with it and let it go, because I've discovered for myself, I heal faster. I mean, maybe within the same time cycle, but when I'm not suppressing or holding it back or trying to thwart it to feel temporarily better, that I go through it seems much quicker than otherwise.
Absolutely. And we're healthier if we allow our bodies to do that. We've almost lost the ability to fight off certain things because of all of the antibacterials, this and this. But to get back to the point about addiction, I'll just give you a number that this is, if this doesn't blow your mind and get you thinking, then it's a problem.
Well, before you do that, because I really want to give you that moment, but I'm old enough, and maybe you are too, although you look so much younger, to remember when it wasn't really cool to have medication ads so prevalent on TV. Now they go, here, ask your doctor to give you this, ask your doctor to give you that. Here, take this, take that, take that. I mean, if you get on the internet, every other thing is a prescription medicine. I mean, we're run by big pharma and by people who are profiting at the expense of other people.
They have doctors telling you, or they got commercials telling you, when you go to the doctor, you should recommend this medicine. Medicine you can't even pronounce, and they're asking you to recommend it. They're marketing to the lowest common denominator, which is somebody who's not feeling well. They're going to give them a solution. There's no education behind it. It's a TV ad. So that's really where we're going. But where this has put us now, Rex, in the last 20 years, 750,000 people have died from opioid overdoses. That's almost 1 million people in the last 20 years.
Wow.
And it's going up. It is not going down. We had a huge bump during COVID, and it's still climbing. So what we're looking at is the next 20 years, the number is 3 million will die unless we do something different. 3 million people. A lot of these people are your sons and daughters, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, mothers, and fathers. I mean, these aren't strangers. These aren't strangers. This is happening in every family in the country. And nobody stood up and said, you know what? It's not acceptable. For some reason, we still have an acceptable number of deaths that occur from alcoholism or drug addiction. I just don't see that as possible. And you get into the areas of the first responders, which we'll be talking about, and it's even worse. It's even worse because now you're adding suicide into the mix as well. Yeah.
So I may hear an answer that I don't want to hear. I may hear an answer that I would like to hear. I don't know what the answer is forthcoming from you, but is it coming in through over our borders, like they say it is, or is this more of a problem that we have because it's so prevalent in our mindset that people who are taking these pills, it's not like, in other words, are criminals coming over the borders or in the ports, that we hear all these stories about left wing, right wing kind of stuff, or is it just that we have a different issue? Like you said, everybody jumps to take a pill.
Yeah, they've weaponized this politically as it's coming over the border, and if we shut it down, this is the same thinking that started back in the the early 80s with the war on drugs.
Actually, wasn't it with the 60s and 70s? Wasn't it with President Nixon who criminalized so much of the drugs to make the lower class, what they call the poor class, or the people of color, criminals, essentially?
It started back then. No. And then we had the war on drugs, which was this was
the 80s. You're right.
They put this out there in the TV ads, and this became a news story. And it was like, we're going to go in, we're going to cut off the drugs to this area. Well, you know what? They go into Pittsburgh and they cut off the methamphetamines. And what happens is the methamphetamines dry up and everybody starts using heroin. And then they go in and they cut off the heroin and everybody moves to crack cocaine. Then they go cut off the crack cocaine. They forgot about the methamphetamines, which are now back. The war has never been on drugs. They've spent over $1 trillion. That's with a T. $1 trillion on the war on drugs. Not one person was saved. They cut off pipelines. They cut off trafficking. But they didn't save anybody because there was always something else. The war needs to be on the apathy that we show, and we criminalize a disease of addiction. We criminalize it. With the war's on the apathy, though. That's where it should be. It's never been on the drugs. If this, like I said, every other country has fentanyl in their country. People aren't dying the way we are here in America because of our apathy towards our poor populations, our homeless populations, and our mentally ill. So,
two things. One is that they restrict heroin and now it's all fentanyl.
Right.
The same drug, different flavor, essentially, or same problem, different flavor.
Yeah.
I think when we were last together on the show that I was describing earlier, I told you about a time that I was at a restaurant in Los Angeles and I was in the bathroom and somebody passed out inside the stall, and I went downstairs and told the manager, hey, somebody's passed out in the stall. And when we got up there, the guy fell forward, and out of his pocket dropped a bottle, and the guy goes, oh, he's a drunk, screw him. I'm going to go call the cops. And I was like, he's still a human being. And so your point to the apathy is not just not caring, but also we've got this hardcore element of screw them if they're going to, be an alcoholic or a drug addict, that they're like disposable people. They're not human like everybody else. And yet what we're discovering is that addiction is touching people of all income levels and all nationalities and all genders and all spiritual, it's a great leveler when it comes to.
Yeah. And the whole thing about, the addicts are below us, or that they're a different class. And then, hi, Lynn, that they're a different class, excuse me, or that they don't count. That argument doesn't hold water when we have people who are famous, people who are of money, people who are of wealth dying from addiction as well. Let's name a couple. It's a Heath Ledger, one of those people that died from addiction. Robin Williams died from a mental health disorder. We could go on, and there's so many, it's hard to even nail down a couple. But we can sit down and name off celebrity after celebrity who has died from that. And you're equating them with the same people who are in the gutter. So that argument doesn't hold water. You're right, Rex. They're people. They're people. And we need to see them that way.
Well, how about also, can you hear me? I keep getting a weird message. You can hear me? Yeah, some weird tech thing going on. Well, let's talk about the obvious, Matt Berry, who has spent years in recovery and everything else. And then it comes out that he's died from, an overdose level of ketamine. And then they find the checks to the doctors going, hey, how much money will this idiot, spend? I mean, in other words, the callous disregard for another person's life through greed, whether that's greed through criminal enterprise or through big pharma, whatever it might be, is shocking. I mean, and it's egregious.
You're absolutely right, but this exists in every area of our culture. You go to buy a house, somebody's going to try to make money off of you. You go to buy a car, they want to make more money off of you. You go to a doctor, they want to make more money off of you, and certainly big pharma wants to make money off of you. All of these things are in line with how we live every day. The problem is now we're playing Russian roulette with real bullets when we start these ketamine clinics that are out of control. I mean, we went through it just about 15 to 18 years ago with this big Oxycontin thing, and all of South Florida became an entirely huge pill mill, and fortunes were made. People are still living on the fortunes they made by killing people with Oxycontin. This is not a new thing, but this is part of the cultural problem that we have. This lends itself to what I was talking about is, the apathy. We I'll rake you over the coals and I'll make money off you. If you die, you die. That's the apathy that's killing our people. It's people who will drive past homeless people on the street and so that they can get to church and get a good seat at church so that they can purport to be good people. These are people that hold charity events for homeless, but homeless aren't invited to these events. They're outside in the cold while everybody's inside eating hors d'oeuvres and donating money. These are all good things, but we have to change our thinking. All the treatment in the world and all the things that we do in the world to try to change move the needle on addictions and on mental health as well, because that's a whole nother argument that we could talk about with mental health. But all the things we do to move the needle, none of it's going to work until everybody buys in that every human life matters. Every person deserves health care. Every person deserves an opportunity to be okay. I have not met a person yet whose story starts with, I was a kid and I decided I wanted to be an addict. I haven't heard that story yet, Rex. I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for somebody to say that in high school, we had career day and we had police and we had hospitals and we had H&R Block for people who wanted to be CPAs. And then we had the table for the dope fiends. It doesn't happen. Nobody plans to end up in that space. But once they're there, we need to be better at helping them.
Well, Ian, this is such an important point because there's this idea like, well, they're poor because they want to be, they don't work because they don't want to work. They're drug addicts because they want to be a drug addict. They're alcoholics because they have no life and they don't know what. And to your point, nobody wakes up or grows up in life going, I think I want to be an addict. I think I want to be I think I want to be out of work and not have anything to ever do and never feel productive. This disparaging of people is really pretty much class warfare.
Yeah.
Not that it doesn't exist within the own class, but it's often top down. It's people looking down on the people who don't have the money, who can't do they can't help themselves because they can't afford to help themselves, or they don't have access to appropriate medical treatment or psychological treatment or whatever it might be. And then people go, well, yeah, screw them. They're all they are is freeloaders and drug addicts and criminals and insane and they're, whatever. And that does need to end.
That's generally a story people will tell until their son or daughter ends up with a problem. And then all of a sudden it becomes a little bit different. It's, how did my kid get dragged into this? Who caused this? Well, I'm sorry. Sometimes there's no cause. And it's as simple as some people become depressed or some people have anxiety. It's about brain chemistry. It's about environment. There's a lot of different things, but there is a real physiological thing that makes you primed to become addicted to its substances.
But on top of it, and with all due respect to everybody who's trying to help it, it's also costly to resolve. I mean, if you look at what Matthew Perry spent in order to try and overcome his reliance on substance, that he may have abused, and I don't want to talk out of turn because I don't know what he went through. It was his life, but he spent maybe $1 million or more. I mean, it's not cheap getting medical care, psychological care, recovery care, any kind of health care in this country.
Well, you know what? It's funny because the success rate of the place in Malibu you might go to, I'm not going to mention names, but let's say it's a beautiful, or you might go to Belize or someplace, and you got this beautiful place, and you got private masseuses, and you've got yourself private chefs, and and that's your treatment center. You spend a lot of money. You spend a lot of money to go to these places. Their success rate is the same as the Salvation Army in downtown Miami. And the Salvation Army, which operates on a shoestring, which the people who actually attend the rehab have to help work to support the program that they're in. No bells, no whistles, certainly no massages and no private chefs. The success rate is the same. What our problem is that we figured out that if you spend 3 months in a program instead of 28 days in a program, your chance of success goes up exponentially. Your chance of success goes from maybe 10% up to maybe 60 to 70% with that extra time. But insurance companies don't want to pay for that time.
Well, it's a whole nother story. I mean, the idea that, insurance companies can practice medicine by telling you what you can and can't do, what treatments are and aren't available, and what they will and won't pay for. And then whether it's medical insurance or house insurance, now they won't make good on, hurricane damage or this, that, and the other thing because they don't want to pay for surge, or they don't want to do this. We have an issue with, greed running so many of our companies or programs or whatever it might be. But I want to say something because I had my eyes opened. I've been in neurolinguistic programming, people helping and everything else. And when I first learned about, AA and things, I'd go, oh, who's going to say I'm an addict? Well, that's stupid. They should never claim that. Why own it? You want to be over it. And so I had all these preconceptions going into it based on my work in therapy and personal change and everything else. And then I had friends and relatives and things who had addiction problems. And so I started to support them. I'd go to AA meetings with them. I joined Al-Anon. And I got to say, I am so impressed by the most part from the people who I met in these meetings who were there to reclaim their lives.
Yes.
And some have had the most horrible stories that you'd ever want to hear of what they've gone through, or the legal problems that they faced, or the medical problems that they faced, or the people that they lost, or the people that, died as a result of something they did while they were, under the influence of something, and the guilt and the shame and everything else. And I sat in these meetings, and I went for years, routinely and regularly to support, people. And I was in California one time when there were about 400 people at a meeting on a Friday night at 8:00. And it made me cry. I was like, these people could be anywhere in the world doing anything they want. And they're here as newbies who are just fresh off the street that somebody's brought them in or dragged them to it. And people who've been in this meeting for 40, 50, 60 years. And I was like, this is happening with these people so that they can live moment to moment, day to day, to recover from something that had a grip on them. And it wasn't just that, but it occurred to me that this is happening all around the world.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, there are meetings like this all around the world, whether it's Cocaine Anonymous or Heroin Anonymous or Sex Anonymous or Gambler Anonymous or Alcoholic Anonymous or whatever it might be. It truly is an amazing, mind-boggling thing. And not that there aren't people. It's like I have in my entire life met one or two people who said, yeah, I'm on Social Security, or I'm on this or that, and I'm going to game the system. I just don't want to work. I'm going to click check. Out of all the people I've ever met in my life, most of them want to work. They want to be productive. They want to care for themselves and their families. They want to get clean. They want to, the gaming the system, the disparaging of the people who have the problem, saying, well, they don't really want to get better. They want free money. They're free. It's just such total BS. And it's what keeps the mindset of everyone. In other words, they don't get to look at the person who's going through the problem as a human being who's facing a problem just like anyone else facing a problem, but they also have a substance abuse addiction, that they need to overcome. So it's mind-boggling. It's just, and that's why I love you so much. I mean, you're working front lines with these kinds of people and trying to help them.
Yeah, and I appreciate that so much. Hey, Sandy, it's good to see you out there. You made some great points there, and one of the things was about people might not understand. It may seem strange from the outside for somebody to say, "Hey, I'm an alcoholic or I'm an addict," and the purpose of that, just so people understand, and this really leans itself towards NLP there, Rex. If you own something, you could change something, but if you don't own something, you're just carrying a picket sign, hoping somebody else will make a change. If you own it yourself, your actions will change yourself. So if I own my addiction, if I own my alcoholism, if I own my violence, if I own my temper, if I own my jealousy, if I own all those things that kind of come together with the package, then I can change those things. As long as I'm sitting there being a victim saying, "Hey, it's not my fault. Johnny Walker made me this way." You're carrying a picket sign and you got no control over your life. So you got to own it. And that's a big part of it. But this is, again, this is kind of a societal thing. We got a lot of people sitting in rooms trying to help each other and do things, but it's still, we're treating this thing like it's a secret society. There's not a person out there. We could shine a light on anyone's life, probably yours too, Rex, where we're going to find a few things where people, if they knew about it, would think you were pretty odd or weird or be afraid of you. We've all got something. We're just taking these big things that are so obvious you can't hide them anymore, bringing them to light, and we're trying to make changes. For me to look at somebody and say, well, I did a lot of drinking. I did very little drugs. I didn't like drugs. I liked drinking. But for me to look at somebody while I am passed out or about to pass out being drunk, to look at somebody with a needle of heroin in their hand and judge them, that's ridiculous. So people walk around judging. They walk around, they judge people. And, I really want to kind of get into how we ended up with the first responders too.
Please.
Because Karen Hurley and I, we've known each other 44 years. She just celebrated 44 years sober. As a matter of fact, tomorrow, because I did a relapse in the middle of my mess, tomorrow I celebrate 20 years sober. So, but the two of us have been friends for a very long time. We got back together as friends and we started training people. We started this company. We were working in treatment centers, and quite honestly, Rex, working in treatment centers turned me off to even helping people because there's so much greed. There is so much. Your hands are tied so much. You know what would work, but you're not allowed to do it. So we worked in treatment centers, and finally we said, that's it. We can't help everybody ourselves. Let's train more people to get out there and get boots on the ground to get more people. So we started a company training people. And it was a regular profit company, and we were doing okay. And then Karen's brother, several years back, about almost 6 years ago, Karen's brother, Michael Hurley from Central New York, a veteran and a firefighter, through his addictions and alcoholism, committed suicide. And, he had a fairly lengthy life, but it finally caught up with him. And Karen had to go and deal with that. And when she came back from dealing with that up in New York, and we sat down, we said, we got to do something. We started looking at the numbers. Year after year, more firefighters die by suicide than they die in the line of duty.
Yes.
Police officers, the same way, committing suicide. High levels of PTSD, addictions, alcoholism. We're starting to finally wake up to the fact that for years, police officers, firefighters, and veterans, they would decompress at the end of every day by drinking until they didn't feel bad anymore. Then they would go home to their families. That's just recently been changing. And we knew we had to do something. So we started Addicted Communities Coalition and the One Brother, One Sister program. And what we do, oh, thank you, Cindy. What we do is we bring trainings on mental health, addictions, alcoholism, suicides. We bring that training to the people so that they can help each other. And we do it at no cost to them. It's all through donations and sponsorships. And we have, to this date, trained well over 2,000 first responders throughout the country. We're going out throughout the country. And we're also working now with, we're starting to move into working with what are they called? The officers in the prisons. What are they called? Corrections. Thank you. The head cold makes me fuzzy, brother.
You're right.
We're working with Department of Corrections, another high stress, high level job. All of these places, we've had an opportunity to get some information to the Border Patrol. We're going to be working with them. Anybody who's in these high stress, high level situations where, listen, two firefighters go into a fire, you count on the guy to have your back or you're in trouble. But who's got your back on the ride back to the fire department after you just watched a child burn? And they get back there and they don't know what to say to each other. We teach them how to help each other. We teach them that if Bob is sitting in the corner and he's not looking good, let's do something. It's no longer let's go get drunk until Bob feels better. We can't do that anymore.
You know, that's such an important point. It's the awareness that how do people look when they're dealing with something stressful? Some look normal. Some look frazzled, you know, oh my God, some look sad. I mean, there's a number of different indicators and they may not all be the same, but if you notice some form of shift, I would suspect you'd have to say, I think there's something going on with this person, you know, and so what's the next step other than just going, oh, look, something's going on.
Absolutely. With first responders, for a long time, it's been that we've been trying to hide this and help, you know, if Bob's a little bit off, let's cover for Bob so that he doesn't lose his spot on the truck. Let's cover for Jim so that he doesn't lose his spot on the squad car. Let's cover for Carl so he doesn't lose his spot on the front lines of a war. All that covering and stuff has created this kind of culture with our heroes. They are heroes. It's created this culture of don't say anything. Don't show weakness. We have to start looking at people. And guess what, Rex? The guy who comes back and sits at the table after a bad fire or a bad police call and cries, those are the ones you don't have to worry about. Yeah, those are the ones you can talk to. It's the ones who put the stiff upper lip and they either just stop talking altogether or they maybe get overly excited and overly funny to cover for what's going on with them.
Well, there's an interesting thing here in what you just said, because drug addicts, alcoholics tend to want to hide their addiction. Now you have a first responder trying to hide their being affected from something that happened to them. If everything is hidden, you know, then nobody's, you know, benefiting. Nobody's getting the help they need. Nobody's going through the stages that they need to go through or the steps they need to go through in order to get help. I want to bring up another point that may sound tangential to what we were talking about now, you know, and more about before. But, you know, in my book, I write about a friend of mine who was made a quadriplegic through an accident, and he now has regained, you know, his ability to walk and to move. He's a successful person. He's still recovering and still gaining more experience every day. He's an Olympic athlete. And you know, I've known him before, you know, long before he was injured and then since. And I am so enamored by him and what he's done and what he's accomplished. I have many friends like that who have been given, you know, a prognosis. If you're never going to walk, you're never going to be able to do this, you're going to die in a few months, and they're all living. But it's interesting that we applaud them, both the alcoholic or the drug addict or the first responder who has an issue, who is struggling to get over stuff. We don't go, oh, how cool. Isn't it neat? Look at what they're doing to accomplish themselves.
You know, addictions, I've been trying to blend the conversation between addiction and mental health, because in 75% of the cases, there's a co-occurring disorder that's going on 75% of the time. There are people with mental health issues that don't fall into self-medicating with alcohol and drugs. And there are some people that become addicted who don't have any serious mental health disorders. But the truth is that many people do. Most people who go through addictions are also suffering from post-traumatic stress of some kind, either from childhood trauma or trauma that occurred during their addiction. Now, I say all that because we live in a society today where nearly 80% of adults in the United States have some sort of mental health discomfort. Now, that doesn't mean you're mentally ill, and it doesn't mean you have a severe anxiety disorder, but you may have some anxiety, you may have some depression, you may have some things like that. Everybody, in some time, we're going to struggle with something. But when we look at somebody who's walking down the hallway with a cast on their arm, we say, oh, that's a shame. How'd you break your arm? And we see somebody who's talking to themselves in a corner or suffering from some sort of mental break or some sort of addictive break, we turn away. We try not to even look. You know, if we could put a cast over their heads, it would probably, they would get more sympathy from people. You know, a broken arm is not a whole lot different than a broken psyche or a broken, your broken brain, your broken, whatever it might be.
Well, I think part of the issue is also our medical model is one of repair. It's remedial. It doesn't promote health. It doesn't promote generative health and well-being. It doesn't say, let's take somebody who's got a problem, help them with the problem, and make sure that they get all the help they need all along the way in order to have a successful life. Or let's take somebody who's, doing fine and make them better. It has nothing to do. It's not like learn how to eat and be healthy. It's like take a drug and get over whatever your problem is. And if you have a problem, shame on you for whatever, blaming the victim kind of thing, and I think so much of what we're discussing is what you started by saying is the cultural issues. To say mental health problem is pejorative. Yeah. And before we said mental health problems, people had problems, but you might not have said, well, it's a mental health problem, or it's a physical problem seems to be a whole lot more acceptable unless it's an addiction or something along those lines. Like you said, a broken arm, in other words, the stigma that's attached, the person is emotionally disturbed as if, well, yeah, but I mean, before I want to say the field of psychology came along, all of this stuff was still going on, but you didn't have labels that made judgments while maybe well-intended have been used just the exact opposite to how they might have been intended at one time.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny because one of the great people that we follow in psychology is who? Dr. Freud, right? We follow a lot of that.
Well, I don't.
No, neither do I. And I'm just going to point out one thing. I'm going to put a challenge out there. Somebody find me a picture of him smiling. It doesn't exist. And this is the guy we want to follow for good mental health. Now, come on. Things are different than they were. We're constantly learning. We're constantly advancing. We're putting phones in watches. In old days, when I was a little kid, I watched Get Smart, and he would pull the shoe off and talk into his shoe. And I thought, my God, we'll never be there. And now to even think about putting a phone in a shoe is ridiculous because we could have a whole phone just in a little pin thing in our ear.
And they want to implant it in your brain.
Area, we advance in every area except our views and our cultural outlook on health. Now, medicine may advance, but it does not advance our thinking about how we view people who are what? Crazy. People who are, addicts, drunkards, whatever you might say. Our actual cultural view of them has not changed very much from the old days.
It's an interesting thing. The DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, at one time was small, with the idea that we'll find out what the diagnosis is so that we could then ultimately be able to help them. It's since become really just a method of creating more labels of issues, of problems that don't exist, so that they can medicate and treat them, because the FDA has come along and said only, a federally FDA approved drug or treatment can cure, if such a thing is possible, or manage whatever the presenting issues are. And I have many doctor psychiatrist friends who now refuse to medicate. And one of them, good friend, said at one point, he said, I quit medicating and I quit the field of psychiatry because what people don't understand is the moment I give you a diagnosis, I've trapped you in that diagnosis for the rest of your life through the insurance companies, through the medical stuff, and everything else. Is going to follow you everywhere. So it's better if I don't diagnose you, but help you. And all what we're really talking about is the machinery that's in place, the profit-driven machinery that's it's not all that we're talking about, but the profit-driven machinery that has for decades, if not a century, contaminated societal thinking and has predisposed us to the issues and the obstacles that we face today with promoting health and well-being in the areas that we're talking about.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, I love that idea that, you don't want to label people with things that are just going to follow them, especially since we're not looking for solutions. We're looking for symptom reduction. We're looking for harm reduction. We're not looking for, I don't want to say the word cure, but root cause. Most medicine today is like a mechanic. You bring them in, there's a pinhole leak in your brake line, and the mechanic will fill the brake fluid and send you on your way, knowing full well that line is still leaking and the problem will reoccur. That's how we're treating our medicine these days. We're not fixing the original problem. And here's where a lot of it starts, Rex, and I'll tell everybody out there, unfortunately, through study after study, and this is not just my thoughts. You can look it up. Don't believe what I say. Look it up and believe yourself. Most addictions, most alcoholism, and most mental health disorders are formed in childhood. And if we were to change the parameters of mental health for our children and more awareness about mental health for children, what if we were teaching, instead of in schools when we're teaching people how to speak 7 different languages, and to take one of those places. I mean, I want to learn another language too. That's cool. But take one of those spots and start teaching people about basic mental health, to understand the difference between sadness and depression, to understand the difference between somebody typing, which kids are now typing, FML. Rex, you familiar with the term FML that kids type these days? Are you familiar with that term?
Can't say that I am. What is it?
Well, I'm not going to say the F word, but it's the F word. So it's F my life.
Oh, yes. Okay.
We got 10-year-olds. That are like, I failed a test at school, FML. They'll say F my life. Even at that young age, at 10 years old and 9 years old, kids walking around with cell phones, and they are basically devaluing life itself in not holding it to the esteem that it should be held to. And we're not addressing those things. We're allowing people to be stressed beyond stress. There's too many things going on. We've got multiple school shootings. I'd love to get rid of guns. That's my idea, but that's not the really big problem. The big problem is why are these things occurring? Everyone out there, they're looking for the attention. They're looking for something. And in most cases, mental health work could have saved those things. Mental health work at a young age, helping people and being aware of what's going on, will reduce the number of addictions we have, will reduce the number of alcoholics we have, and reduce the number of mental health crises in this country. If we stop treating it like it's a secret, it's too much. Have you met depressed children before, Rex? Have you had an opportunity? There's nothing sadder in this world, and yet people will spend more time donating to the animal shelter because a dog is sick, and it makes them feel bad. And Sarah McLachlan does that song on that TV commercial that makes us all cry. But we don't realize the kid across the street is getting beaten, or is being ignored, or this malnutrition, and all these things are going on. And we're not doing anything about it. This is where it needs to start. We still got a lot of work to do in all the other areas too, though.
Wow, it's amazing. And it's, wow.
I know it's a lot to unpack. I do get mad.
No, it is amazing. And sadly, I don't have the statistics ahead of me at the moment, but so little of it is due to biology. And there are instances where people have a physiological reason for something. So much of it is due to the conditions that they're brought up with, whatever the life stressors are, the experiences. Maybe there's some fetal alcohol syndrome and stuff like. I mean, I'm not saying, what I'm saying, yeah. But so much of the of what's going on. My kids were bullied, and we found out the hard way, by when they were little, what was going on in the middle schools and stuff like that, and how pervasive it was, and how long and how far and how much it followed them, no matter where they were, because of social media, or because, it went from middle school to high school, whatever. So, if it exists in the family or the neighborhood, or through not well-meaning adults or older children or something who are abusing the other, I mean, it's egregious. It truly is egregious. I want to segue here, because we've got about 5 or 6 minutes left, but I wanted to point out that Cynthia Mannion is who just said hello, and I'm going to be on her show in just a little while this evening, and she's done a fabulous show, and she said she wants to have a show with you too. So it won't happen tonight, but you guys can make that arrangement. I wanted to point that out, because she's a fabulous host and an active person in the area of change, and boy, if she can help get this message out too, you got a good advocate there to work with, and somebody who you're going to love meeting. So
Thank you.
I want to say that, and thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
So we've diagnosed the problem, which is what medical practitioners do, and bean counters do, and everybody does. Now, what's our solution? How do we? Because I know you're working at that. That's the very thing that drives you is to create that solution, and to further that solution. So in the remaining time, can we focus on what you're doing, or what people can do, especially if they have a loved one, or they know a first responder who is in their family or something like that needs help? What do they need to do, and how do they need to do it?
They need to reach out. That's the first thing, and not ignore things. Hey, Scott, good to see you, brother. They need to not ignore things. Too many people turn their head the other way. Parents don't want their children to hate them or be upset with them, so they try to sugarcoat or protect their children if they know that they're going down a path of addiction or a mental health disorder.
So denial.
We treat this, Rex. If somebody's about to jump off a bridge and you're walking by, you grab them. You don't stop and think about it. You don't go have dinner first and then come back and see if they're still there. You grab them. We need to treat mental health and addiction the same way. It's not the same as it used to be. I'm going to tell you real quick, back in the 1950s, when Alcoholics Anonymous was formed, and they created what was at the time the ultimate writing on the AA Big Book, was the ultimate writing on alcoholism and understanding alcoholism. But that was 74 years ago, or 75 years ago, however long it was. And in there, they even said, if you're not convinced, go out and try some controlled drinking. Now, could you imagine telling somebody who's addicted to chemicals, all right, if you're not ready yet, go out and try some more using? They'll be dead. Fentanyl is killing people left and right. Fentanyl is how my wife passed away. It's a killer. We can't do the same things anymore. We have to react. If you see something wrong, you say something. We now have a national mental health hotline, and I keep getting the 3 numbers wrong. I think it's 988. Is that correct? Or somebody correct me and put it in the comments.
Yeah, that would be good.
You also can call us at One Brother, One Sister. You go to onebrother1sister.com. You can give us a call at 786-514-0893. Once again, 786-514-0893 or onebrother1sister.com. Just ask questions. I think my son, I think my husband, I think my wife is having a problem. What should I call somebody? The shame that we feel, we're adding to it when we don't speak up. If we speak up, we give air to things, we can kill that shame about being shameful about having an addiction or having a mental health problem. The other thing that we have to do is educate our people. That's what we do. We spend our time with our first responders. We spend our time with our community heroes. And yes, we even go into treatment centers and try to educate them to start thinking differently. Stop looking at people as if somebody's an addict, that's it, they're just an addict. No, there's so much more. They're a human being. They've got so many cool nuances to each one of them. They all need something a little bit different. Start treating them like the human being that they are, and maybe we'll get better results instead of looking at them all like addicts, and we'll try to save as many as we can.
Wow. No, it's I want to thank you for that, and thank you for what you do. The idea of somebody on a bridge about to jump off, you can't you can't deny it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, in other words, if you go, wow, they don't really mean to jump off. They're not really setting themselves. I mean, they're just standing on the railing, looking down at the, I mean, and yet that's the tendency that we have because I guess we want to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. But if they then let go and you went, well, oh, geez, I was just a moment late, they still let go. And if it's your child, if it's your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad, a friend, somebody who care enough to care, and if nothing else, connect, right? Ask, is there anything I can do for you? Do you need anything? I mean, I'm here for you, brother or sister, or whatever. There's a way to be helpful without being intrusive.
Yes.
And there's a way to be helpful without being obnoxiously helpful.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we're not always going to succeed. I understand that. I understand. But I don't ever, and having children who have addiction problems as well, myself, I never want to put my head on the pillow thinking I could have done more today to help them. Or if God forbid, I lose one of them, like I lost my wife, what could I have done? That's a horrible feeling. It's much better to have them hate me for a good long life. If I step on your toes to get you help, hate me forever. That's fine. As long as you have a forever. But that feeling of going to bed and knowing you could have done something, that is a horrible, horrible feeling. Nobody should feel that. Speak up. If you see something, say something.
And on top of it, if you are facing an issue or someone, reach out. Don't sit and go, I can handle it. It's all mine. And hide it. Reach out to the appropriate people who can help you. Reach out to Scott, reach out wherever you have to, in order to make sure that your needs are met and that you get the kind of help you need in order to live the kind of life you want to live.
Absolutely. Don't be ashamed. Everybody goes through hard times. When you're quiet, you stay stuck in them longer. That's all I can tell you.
So why do you think it's so hard? And we only got about 2 minutes, but why do you think it's so hard for people to just ask for help? I mean, I know it's conditioning and everything else and pull yourself up by bootstrap, but wouldn't it just be a lot better to say, hey, I need help with this?
If I'm in the road and I'm trapped under something heavy, it's very easy to yell out. But if I'm sitting on the side of the road with thoughts running through my head, I don't want to share that with people because of the stigma. People might laugh at me because I was trapped under something heavy, but they don't think less of me. They think less of me if I say that I'm having bad thoughts or I can't stop using Oxycontins or Valium or drinking. They think less. It's the stigma. The only way to change that stigma is for people to speak up. And this is also, need to put this out there. There's a lot of people out there in recovery who have recovered from mental health, from PTSD, from addictions, who are silent about their recovery. They need to speak up as well, Rex. They need to share their stories and they need to tell everybody, I was in a dark place, but there's so much light behind that, and let people know.
Wow. Well, I appreciate you, and I am so glad that you're here. I want people to know that they can watch the replay, share the replay at the very RexLikesTV.com that they see scrolling across the bottom right now, or they can go to Create Your Best Life with Rex channel on YouTube, and they can get the actual YouTube link, which I will post in my social media and everywhere else as well. And they have people there. And I know that you've been streaming to friends and things like that and places. So they can reach out to you at here at onebrother1sister.com or soberlifestudios.com. We didn't get to talk at all about your artwork or the other things that you do, but you're an amazing, talented artist. But the art is not just the ability to paint and to draw that you do, but the art of having the ability to help other people and to bring them into a fold so that they too can get help as needed is truly an art and truly a talent that you have and an ability that you have that I think anyone who's watched and listened to you is grateful that you have it and has had the experience of listening to you and watching you here today.
Rex, I appreciate it. I hope one day you'll pop in on one of my shows and we can talk about the great work you do. More importantly, getting people to shift and get out of their own way in their lives.
Well, I thank you for that. And Scott, you're amazing. I love you, brother. And yes, we'll share the airways again and again and again. And in the meantime, hang out. I'll be right with you. And I want to thank you for being here. Any closing comment or thoughts that you'd like to make in these minutes?
Probably just, don't punish yourself for going through a hard time. Don't stay in the hard time to hide the hard time. The best people that I've ever met and the people that have changed this world are people who went through a hard time and turned it into something fabulous. Everyone can do it. You can do it. There's no limits. Just speak up.
God, that is beautiful. Thank you, my friend. I'll see you in just a few minutes. And meanwhile, all the best. And thank you for watching. Everyone who's been watching, I hope that you will share this. You can continue to comment. You can ask questions even afterwards in the replays and comment and engage. But share. If you have anyone who's been touched by what we've discussed today in any way, shape, or form, and you want to share this, please go ahead and do that. I think that's vital. I think it's important that people have access to the kind of help they need, and this may be a first step. So if not, and if you don't do something, then who's going to do it, right? Wow. Well, I want to thank Scott Jones for being here. He's just such an amazing and magnificent person, and it comes from such a wonderful place. Yes, you can always get my book. It's right there behind me. Life on Your Terms. It's available at Amazon and elsewhere. And certainly if you go to rexsykes.com/book, you can get that. And I've got a bonus there too. But I want to tell you about something else that I have going on right now. And you might be seeing it in social media. It's the Create Your Best Life using Einstein and Tesla's Genius. It's a program that I've developed, put together. It's got 10 different modules. It's an online video training to help you transform your life, to learn how to be more creative, to use your brain like Einstein did and Tesla did and others, and also to be able to problem solve with greater ease and efficiency, and to rely more on your own intuition. And there's a whole lot more. I'll say that about that right now. But it's called Create Your Best Life through using Einstein and Tesla's Genius. And you can get it, or you can at least look into it right there at rexsykes.com/Einstein. And you want to go look at it. It's online video training. There's manuals. There's a support group. There's a community that's emerging. I'm adding new things to the program all the time. There's going to be live Q&As and different things. So check it out. Enroll if this is something that you want to do and you want to be better at these different kinds of talents. Go investigate that and find out how easy it is to enroll and how transformative it can be in your life, because I'm really, really proud and pleased with the program and with the results that people get going through it. And I think you will be too. I know you will be too if you actually go ahead and do it. So without any further comments, I just want to say that next week I'll have another guest. I've got a doctor coming on the show. He's going to be here. He might surprise you about what he talks about, but he's going to be here joining us on the very next show. That'll start being promoted in a little bit. In the meantime, tune in, subscribe to Create Your Best Life with Rex, the YouTube channel, so that you always are notified about when I've got shows, either a show like this one, or my other shows that I do, or the other times that I'm on guest shows and things like that. Like this evening, I'll be on Cynthia Mannion's show. So please join me whenever you can. And I'm so happy that you do. And I appreciate your love and your support and your care. And I encourage you to understand, as I always say, if you look at something as a problem, it's a problem. But if you look at something as a solution, it can be a solution. So it's how you look at it, right? And that's why I say celebrate it all, because all of it matters. So create your best life. Have a really fabulous day, and I will see you the next time. Bye for now.